I remember when I was in first grade telling my friends I wanted to go on a diet. I didn't really want to, but I thought it sounded cool. My mom was always on a diet, so it was something that was often talked about. I was an indoor kid, more interested in watching movies, reading, arts and crafts. There I was, sitting on the couch eating processed, hydrogenated, high-fructose corn syrup-laden junk while being fed media messages of how to slim down. My mom warned me incessantly about how fat I was going to get. There were never conversations about healthier alternatives or ways that my body could help me feel good, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. We would go on diets together, cutting up our plain hot dog wieners and splitting a grapefruit, grilling iceberg for dinner, bonding over our shared hatred of ourselves. After Mom divorced Dad, she was poised to create a fine physique, proof to the outside world of her newly discovered self, sanctified in the conclusion of matrimonial bliss. Ironically, I started packing on the pounds. I tagged along with her to gym excursions, usually getting a protein shake loaded with calories, sugar, and way too much protein for my 8-year-old body, and probably about as healthy as a Mickey D's milkshake. I started feeling intense shame about my body. I was developing stretch marks all over. It felt like some terrible punishment. Like you can be fat, but when you have stretch marks, somehow the whole world knows. Each vein like rupture on my skin, shouting the hideousness of my soul, grotesque and malformed. Around the same time, I started developing keloid scars, a hereditary condition where my skin would overheal and produce excess collagen after getting a pimple, stitches, or an open wound. I felt guilt-ridden, like a loathsome monster was crawling over me, exposing my secrets I tried desperately to hide behind baggy clothes and extra layers. I withdrew inside my head, isolating myself from the world. I began to associate the outdoors with skinny people who didn't worry about stretch marks or unsightly scars, ate whatever they wanted, wore bathing suits, and were happy. Initially, I would eat to experience happy feelings I associated with better times, comfort foods my dad used to make when family life seemed less nightmarish, before my parents divorced, before my mom quit me for her new family and abusive husband, before all the white kids at school asked me about the rap stars that I was supposed to personally know. I felt like an outsider in my mom's new family, increasingly developing more shame around my feelings, body, and eating habits. I would hurriedly grab from the fridge, run downstairs to the basement, being alone, or wait until everyone had gone to bed and silently rifle through the contents of the kitchen for something to fill the emptiness in my heart. I started using food to self-medicate, dissociate, numb myself. I remember going through binge cycles, eating, watching TV, feeling the lining of my stomach fill to full capacity, eating more, feeling the lining stretch to its limits. The pain of this feeling bringing me back into my body, if just for a moment. When it would dissipate, I'd eat more to feel the burning, the stretching, the feeling of feeling something, even if it was pain. I savored it. Sometimes eating just because I enjoyed the sensation of texture in my mouth. At some point, I forgot what it felt like to be hungry, allowing my emotions to decide when I was going to eat instead of my body. The worst of these patterns occurred when I was in high school. I started using cutting and self-mutilation to bring myself into my body as coping mechanisms to handle dissociation. It felt like an echoing static blaring in my ears, numbing out my whole body from inside out. When I would cut, feeling the razor through the flesh reminded my brain that I could feel, that I was alive. It allowed me to break through the fog that pounded in my head, a disconnected purgatory of self-loathing. My parents ignored it for a while, denial being their primary pattern of dealing with the destructive behavior of a depressed teenager. Sometimes they asked about the little markings on my thighs and arms, but the conversations never went further than that. I was overcome with feelings that I didn't have time to feel, or rather that felt inappropriate to feel, let alone share. My stepdad would say my feelings were excuses for attention. My cutting was throwing a pity party. Because my cries for help were met with ridicule by the people who were supposed to love me most, I learned to distrust my feelings. losing sense of what felt good or bad and everything in between. I didn't allow myself to feel it seemed like a waste of time, passive imaginings of a girl that didn't matter to her family, herself, or world. Desperate for a feeling of belonging amidst the new family my mom created, I felt like a disgusting fat slob, not worth enough to merit protection from the assaulting terror of my stepdad's abuse. I was screaming inside at the top of my lungs for help, for love. I was a walking zombie, insulating my decaying insides with layers of fat. Sometimes I would use marijuana to increase the dissociation, then use food or cutting to bring myself back into reality. I didn't have an emotional barometer, so I created artificial markers for feeling. On one end were things that would numb me out when the weight of the world felt like too much to handle. Marijuana, TV, food, even music sometimes. On the other end was self-mutilation. These extremes contrasting each other as sides of my emotional scale. I used these physical sensations to remind my emotional self how to feel, because it had forgotten to on its own. It wasn't until later that I understood that there was a continuum of emotional feeling beyond my limited binary understanding. In recent years, I've begun to delve into trauma symptoms that I've been carrying around so long without recognition, like dissociation and anxiety. Oftentimes, I didn't realize how triggering it was being around my family. It wasn't until I had a better understanding of what was happening in my body that I was able to consciously register what was happening and take action to remove myself from the situation. Writing has been fundamental in my process of healing around disordered eating, self-hate, abuse, and depression. I didn't know the power that words carry, the release of trauma, pain. I started digesting texts by fearless women of color like Audre Lorde, Gloria Anzaldúa, and Cherry Morega. These women spoke of language as a means of self-liberation, healing, and transformation. They talked about words like weapons, firebombs exploding shackles we create for ourselves informed by society's matrix of intersecting oppressions. Their words opened my heart and filled it with a courage I never knew I had. In the essay, The Transformation of Silence into Language and Action, Audre Lorde writes, "What are the words that you don't have? What do you need to say? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own until you sicken and die of them still in silence?" This message sunk deep into my bones. Writing became an act of survival, resurrecting the voice that had died, buried beneath years of pain. But that was only one piece of the puzzle. For a long time, I carried feminism around as a blazing emblem of my power, as if these words carried my soul to divine ascension. In doing so, I lost sight of the fact that it was my body that was doing half, if not more, of the slow, arduous task of healing. Ironically, that idea is a product of my patriarchal socialization that hadn't left my psyche. In this society, we legitimize matters of the mind over matters of the body. We prize the logic of experts, science, and facts, forgetting that for centuries, wise women have known of the body's ability to heal itself. Although I needed words to recognize systems of oppression and abuse, in the end, it was my body that remembered what it felt like to